So I wanted to give you a little briefing on how to do a correct indoor search. First, you're going to have your team leader do an initial walkthrough, and this is usually done with the responding officer is going to help walk the team leader and possibly the assistant leader through the crime scene. When sectioning off your scene by setting up crime scene tape, this helps keep unwanted personnel out of your scene. You want to make sure that you have two different borders. With an indoor scene, such as a house, the house acts as the first border. However, sometimes you'll have some evidence outside of the scene, such as point of entry and point of exit. You want to make sure that you set up your borders around secure objects, that will keep personnel far enough away from the scene so onlookers and media are not able to see what is going on in the scene. You set these up by tying it around trees, posts. You can even stick in a stake in the ground if there's no objects around, and this helps give it a secure border. Let me know when you're ready for more. Once your scene has been properly sectioned off, which is around the entire scene, you set up a point of entry, and this is where anyone who would like to enter the scene must enter the scene. And in order to enter the scene, you have a scene response log, like the one seen here, and this will allow you to keep track of who has entered the scene and who has exited the scene and what time they have entered or exited. When entering a scene, you want to make sure you enter at a point of location that has the least amount of evidence. This is usually given through the first officer report. If it is unknown, you want to carefully enter the scene as if any door or window could have been used. You want to make sure you're walking along the side where the person would normally not walk, so you do not disrupt any fragile evidence such as dust prints, wet residue prints, or fingerprints. You also want to be careful to not touch the handle in a way where you could disrupt any fingerprints. You can use a flashlight to look at the handle, and when you have cleared that there's no fingerprints, you can pick an area that's least likely for someone to have touched and open the door, and again slowly enter the scene along the side so you do not disrupt any evidence that could be invisible to the naked eye. So upon entering a crime scene for the first time, your first officer is going to lead you through the crime scene and give you a report. You want to make sure you're dressed appropriately for the crime scene, and that generally includes wearing booties to cover your shoes so you do not create any other footwear impressions, gloves to protect the scene and your hands from any of the evidence, a lab coat to protect you and your clothing from evidence, as well as you from depositing own evidence at the scene. And you want to make sure your hair is up and out of the way so you don't leave fragile evidence or trace evidence behind. You want to make sure you have a flashlight with you and that you're scanning the scene before you enter an exit way or entrance way for possible dust prints or any other fragile evidence. You can also look along the walls to see if there's fingerprints that could have been left by the assailant or the victim upon a struggle. When you realize that the area is clear, you carefully move along the edge of the doorway or the walls to make sure you're leaving the center of the scene open where most people would commonly walk. Without touching the wall, you just walk along the side and carefully maneuver, scanning the rest of the scene for footprints and other fragile evidence that may be seen. As you're scanning the scene with your flashlight, you're looking for fragile evidence. And when you or your assistant leader who is with you observing the scene or the first responding officer spots any evidence, you can call out evidence and mark it with an evidence marker to show that there's fragile evidence in that area, which will stop people from walking in that general area. This way the evidence doesn't get disrupted or damaged during your team's search and photography and sketching, which will be after the initial walkthrough.